Smoke. OVS. Old Virginia Smoke.
Hello, kids, and welcome to the second episode of Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. I am your host, Luke Darnell. I will deconstruct world-class pitmasters to extract the tactics, tools, and routines you can use at home in your backyard and in the competition barbecue world. This includes morning routines, habits, tricks, and much more. You will hear from cooks from around the world. We will discuss what's challenged them, how they handle adversity, and where they turn to for advice and counsel. Our second guest is Bethany McCallister with 913 Barbecue out of Olathe, Kansas. 913 Barbecue won the American Royal Invitational in 2016 and was the reserve champion in 2018 for KCBS Chicken Team of the Year. Less notably, Bethany has been my teammate for a couple of years at the National Barbecue League Big 12 Big Q contest in Kansas City. So please join me in welcoming my friend Bethany McCallister. All right, so we're here with Bethany McCallister from 913 Barbecue out in Kansas City. How are you today, Bethany?
I'm great. The weather is really nice out, actually. It's not too hot, not too cold.
It'd be great if there wasn't a pandemic and we could actually go do things.
I know.
So one of the coolest things that I've got to do in barbecue is cook with you a couple of times. We've been teammates out at the Big 12 barbecue bash that they do every year, and I get to come out and cook for WVU. And one of my favorite barbecue stories involves you. And I'll go ahead and set the scene. So
okay.
It's pretty cold, probably in the 30s. The wind was blowing. Standing outside the arena there in downtown Kansas City. Freezing. Then my teammate Bethany shows up, and maybe you can talk a little bit about how you were prepared for that day.
Well, as you said, it was quite chilly, so I think I had my stocking cap on and my vest that's all puffy and warm, and I drove in my nice warm car with my nice warm cup of coffee that I made for myself. I really didn't think about anyone else but me.
The coffee.
So I walk up. So I'm walking to the site where everyone is set up, sipping out of my Yeti mug, my nice warm coffee, while my poor teammate Luke is standing there freezing to death with no hot coffee.
Yep. And I was like, that looks delicious. And she was like, oh.
If David would have been your teammate, he would have brought coffee for everybody.
That's true.
He's like that.
Yeah, your husband is one of the nicest people in the world, and he's always doing things for people. It's amazing. So, Beth, you've been pretty successful in the barbecue world, and it's particularly important for me to have you on here as one of the top female pitmasters in the country. That's a big deal, and it's one thing I've noticed during the quarantine that you've done a lot more social media, a lot more videos and stuff. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I know here recently I haven't been doing quite as many, but hopefully I can pick up here again soon. But I started a YouTube channel. It's something that I had thought about doing for a long time, but didn't really have the time. With commuting, I commute downtown, and then we were competing every weekend, but that all stopped. So I'm working from home through the end of the year. And obviously, a lot of competitions have been canceled. So I thought it was a good time to start that up. So I did some. I've learned a little bit of how that works. And I have some other ideas out there that I just need to put them together and drop them. I think I might do a barbecue trailer tour. Oh. And I did do a chicken in Chillicothe. I just filmed what it's like to do chicken at a barbecue contest. So I have that footage. I just need to put it together.
Yeah, it's as someone who's recently started a YouTube channel myself, there's a giant learning curve to all of that.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, it looks great, but I can't hear myself. This is weird.
Right. There's all this equipment that you should get. I've kind of winged it. I really haven't purchased anything too crazy.
So when you hear the word successful in terms of barbecue, who's the first person that comes to mind?
So, there's obviously a lot of really successful people on the competition circuit. But the first person that comes to my mind is probably Darren Morse. He's, I think, won like everything. So, and has successful restaurants. And so that's the first person that comes to mind for sure.
Yeah, he's pretty much been around the world 3 or 4 times in terms of that stuff. And someday we'll eventually have him on here as well, which will be
Yeah,
fun.
that would be a great interview.
Yeah. So who has impacted your life the most in competition barbecue? I know that being where you guys are and the level of cooks that are around there week in and week out, I'm sure you've had interaction with a lot of the greats, and I just like to hear who's given you advice, who's impacted you the most.
Once again, there's so many people that have helped us out, but I know, well, obviously I rely a lot on David, and then we both, I know, chat a lot with Joe Pierce with Slaps, and Brad Leininger with Getting Basted, and Tim Shearer with Shake and Bake, and Chris Hoisington with Hunka Hunka Burn and Rub. And so there's all sorts of different competition teams up here, and they all bounce ideas off of each other. And I know we've been struggling quite a bit in brisket these days, or maybe it's been a bit, but we often ask for their guidance and any advice that they might have for us. So
yeah, and I've noticed that it's when I've had the opportunity to come out there and cook out that way, the camaraderie there is really, really fantastic, and people are very open to helping, especially their friends.
Yeah, for sure. I've never had anyone, if you've asked a question, they've given you an answer. They might not be giving you everything, all the details, but
right.
People are definitely willing to help each other out.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you think in terms of kind of pivoting a little bit, in terms of your career and life experiences outside of barbecue, how have any of those prepared you to be a pit master out there in the competition barbecue world?
I guess in career life, you have to be a team player. You have to be organized, detail oriented. And so I know some people giving me a hard time or kind of made fun of me for having I used to have a clipboard. I got rid of the clipboard. But I had like a clipboard with a list. And at one point, I think I had like a PowerPoint slide with like the timeline and all that. So I think having a career where you have to kind of have those skills has really flown over into the barbecue world too. So
right. And organization, I tell people all the time that competition barbecue is the only thing that I'm OCD about, because I just don't have those things, and they're not inherent to me. But having cooked with you a couple of times, I know that where your level is on these things.
I'm not at the was it a paintbrush level?
Yeah, you're not maybe at the paintbrush level, but
No.
We'll get there to your gamesmanship.
Okay.
There's just so many interesting ways to go that we can go. When you hear about younger pit masters that are coming into the game, especially younger female pit masters, what advice would you give them as they're starting out, and what advice maybe should they ignore?
Definitely don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, don't be afraid to go up to other teams and ask them for advice. And then also, I think what really helped us was David took quite a few classes and he brought back that knowledge. So I would definitely say, don't be afraid to ask questions. Everyone's usually really friendly and helpful. And then to maybe get a class or two under your belt so you can really kind of take it to the next level. Because if you're serious about it and you want to do 20 competitions a year or whatever, the competition is fierce. So you'll have to kind of learn how it's done.
I tell people all the time, they're like, what's the best thing I can do to get really good really fast? I'm like, go take a class. There's so many things you're going to learn that'll just change how you approach everything.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So what were some of the best decisions that you and David made when you guys first started out competing?
Why did we decide to do this 30 times a year? No, I'm just kidding. No, I do think for sure David is a little bit more of a social butterfly than I am. So kind of taking that advice I just did, he's not afraid to ask questions. So I think those decisions early on, getting to know people and asking for their help and taking those classes. And when you start out, if you want to take it seriously, like I said, get organized and get everything together so you can be successful. So
right. And that's being organized and being prepared for that kind of stuff is, I think, what separates, the good from the great. But as we all know, like sometimes you're in the middle of a cook and you get a gut feeling like there's something that you should do that maybe doesn't necessarily fit in the timeline. And, when one of those feelings comes over you, how does that affect you?
Sometimes I get torn, I'm not going to lie, because I just had one of these this weekend. So I had my chicken. I had the 6 pieces that I wanted picked out, and I was putting them in the box. And I noticed that one of the skins wasn't quite right. Like, you couldn't see it necessarily in the box.
Yeah.
But I started to kind of second guess myself. Well, what if the judge can't bite through this skin? It looks a little thicker, but the other ones didn't look as good. And so, like, at the last minute, I swapped it out. But it worked out fine. So
yeah. Where'd you finish in chicken?
I was 8th, I think.
Okay. It's one of those things where I've learned in my trailer that if I have that feeling, I should follow it probably.
Yeah.
But maybe not tell my teammate, Kim. She's really, really into the process.
Yeah, it can be hard.
Yeah. Well, it is hard. And, we've all had those decisions that we've made where they've not worked out. And can you think of an instance where you had a failure or an apparent failure that you really learned from and what set you up for later success?
Well, I guess I'll go the apparent failure part because it ended up turning out okay. But like, one of my favorite stories is in 2016, we were invited to the King of the Smoker, and we were still pretty new on the barbecue circuit at that time. And we really didn't know a whole lot of people. And, we got invited to this competition where there's a lot of really great teams there. So, it was a little intimidating, and we just didn't want to do really bad. Our goal was just like not be last place. So we get there, and where I'm, borrowing equipment, and we go buy our supplies, and it's, day of the competition. I'm getting close to rib turn-in. And at the time, we were wrapping our ribs in like saran wrap and then foil. At the time, we thought it was helping with the, the crust of the ribs would be a little softer. But anyways, so since we were traveling, it was out in California. We didn't have our restaurant grade saran wrap like you get at Costco or Restaurant Depot.
Yeah.
We just got it from Walmart. So we're going to check the ribs, and we opened the foil, and the plastic had all melted.
Oh no.
Like, it had shrunk up, and some of it was just, I don't even know where it went, to be honest. We were like pure panic mode. Blaine Hunter with Porky Butts was next to us, and I think he was enjoying the pure panic on our faces because we did not know what to do. But we cleaned up as much of the melted plastic wrap as we could on the fly there, and tried to brush off whatever we could, and we ended up winning ribs. If you could do it. So we say plastic wins.
Plastic wins. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but that's advice I guess I should give to people. If you buy the saran wrap from Walmart, it says right on the box, do not use with high heat or sugar. And we use with high heat and brown sugar.
And sugar.
Yeah.
Instead of just one, you use both. Well, this sport can be frustrating. Have you ever had a breaking point moment that you were like, okay, I've had it with this. It's time to call it a day?
Yeah, it's mostly when that's happened is when I am like hot and tired.
Yeah.
And I act like a toddler. I just need a nap or something. I don't know. So it was actually when we did our barbecue fight club.
Yeah.
So I had taken that week off, and we drove like 14 hours there and 14 hours back. So we got back on like a Wednesday, I believe. And so I spent all day Thursday running around, getting ready to go to Oklahoma. So we're in the Kansas City area. So that was like another 4 hours away. So we get up Friday and we drive to Oklahoma. So we've been on the road a lot at this point, which I'm not used to. I know there's teams out there that do it, but that's just whatever. I can't do it. And it was hot, and we were like on pavement.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like 100 degrees, and I was hot and grumpy. And so, yeah, at the end of that contest, we didn't even stay for awards because Bethany was grumpy and wanted to go.
Yeah, I would say probably, a lot of ours are that way too. Like, the heat can just get to you so fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but we've had poor finishes, I think we've finished last in a category before, and I think almost last overall, but I haven't ever been like, oh, I want to quit because of that. Usually it's like, well, what do we need to change to make it better
Right.
next time?
So when you feel overwhelmed or unfocused at a competition, or you lost your focus, what do you do? How do you get yourself back into the mix?
So usually take a deep breath. If I'm at a competition, maybe I'll crack open a White Claw. I do like those. Lime is my favorite. And just realize like this is not the end of the world type of situation. You know, this is barbecue. It's just fun. You know, we're here with our friends, so don't be overwhelmed.
Right.
So that helps.
What helps me a lot I have a lot of superstitions and rituals and routines and stuff. And do you guys have any of those in the 913 trailer?
You know, David is more, he has like certain hats that he wears and things like that. I mean, I stick to his schedule, but I'm really not the superstitious type. Maybe I should be. Although I did started taking this picture. It's really weird. I have of my coffee with like whatever meat I'm seasoning at the time and putting it on Facebook. And we did good one time, so now I kind of feel like I have to do that. So I guess that is superstitious. I don't know.
I've always felt like those pictures, your coffee pictures, were just subtle jabs at me. Like, look, I have more coffee.
Oh, that's amazing.
I know. So we all know what it's like, but I think one of the cool things about what we're doing here is like sharing like some stuff that goes on prior to the competition. Like, what does your week look like before a competition in terms of preparation? Do you have a set schedule of when things get done?
Yeah, for the most part. Like, we'll just say in 2019, not so much 2020 because it's weird. But, you know, we get home on a Saturday from competition, clean everything up, clean the trailer out, go put the trailer back in storage. And then on Sunday, I would spend most of my day getting supplies, you know, because you can't get everything you need from one grocery store, you know,
right.
You have to go to like 5. So, so I spend most of my day Sunday doing that. And then Monday or Tuesday, I'll pre-make my boxes so they're already ready. And then Wednesday, I start making injections and trim the chicken. And then on Thursday, we may trim pork or brisket and then get the trailer again. So so that's it. But this year is pretty cool. I graduated to brisket trimming.
Wow.
Yeah, so during quarantine, that's one thing I did was practice brisket trimming and cooking brisket. So now I like last weekend we actually used the brisket that I trimmed. I got promoted to that, yeah.
I think the week coming up is so important just to make sure you're prepared. But it's also important, you know, when you're on site, some things that you do as well. A lot of people always ask me, you know, is there any psychological warfare going on? Is there any talking smack? I mean, you famously shit talked me during the Fight Club broadcast, but because you're so amazing, you immediately ran over and told me that you did it.
It just comes so unnaturally. Like I try, but it just doesn't really work, I don't think.
It was funny. My friends were watching it and they're like, "Who is this Bethany chick?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I told them, I was like, "You guys have no idea. Like, it hurt her to do that."
Yes. Like I had to pump myself up to, you know, try to say it. So.
It was fantastic. This is one of my favorite questions because we all know that barbecue is so expensive to go out and compete every weekend. And of course, we've all spent thousands of dollars on stuff to go and do it. But what purchase of $100 or less has most positively impacted your barbecue life? And it could be recently or anytime. I think these little things are good for people to hear, like, so they can make little improvements to their game.
Definitely, I think the Thermopin. I think it might be right at $100. So, yeah. But definitely, you have to have one. It gives you the temperature, but you can also use it to feel for tenderness. And before barbecue, I didn't use one at home, and now I have one at home in my home kitchen. And because, you know, before, if I was just cooking a chicken breast for myself or a turkey burger or something, I know I was way overcooking it, you know, because didn't know what temperature it was. So definitely having a Thermopin on hand from, I think they're Thermal Works. I don't know, is that the
Yeah.
company? And they're like around $100. So
Yeah, I would agree with you as well. They're indispensable in everyday life, in my opinion.
yeah, they're awesome. Everyone should have one in their kitchen and barbecue
Absolutely.
trailer.
What do you think is missing from competition barbecue these days?
I was thinking that, I mean, I know I have a barbecue trailer and I know a lot of teams do have barbecue trailers, but the competitions that I've been able to participate in where you're under a tent is so much fun. I know that when you're doing it 30 or 40 times a year, cooking from under a tent or sleeping under a tent or whatever probably doesn't sound fun. But just like earlier this year, there was a rib only competition down at the KCBS headquarters, and everyone was cooking out of a pop-up tent, and it was just so much fun because everyone's out and about, and
You
it's just
can't hide. You can't
yeah,
hide.
exactly. You see what people are doing, you have conversations, tease each other, and it'll probably won't ever be like that, but
Yeah.
it's fun when it's like that.
That was a neat thing that KCBS is starting, the single category rib competitions. Did you guys have a good time doing that?
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I hope they do more because, if you're kind of thinking, well, there's a couple different angles I guess you could look at it. First of all, they count for Master Series points.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're chasing rib points or whatever, you can squeeze in one of those meat only competitions and it would count towards your team of the year points. But then also, teams that maybe a little intimidated to start with a full KCBS 4-meat competition, this is a great way to get started. I know that I had chatted with a guy at work, I think he's been thinking about competition barbecue, but, didn't want to do all of the investments right now. So the rib only competition is just a great place to get started.
I agree with you on that. I think it's going to be great in terms of growing the sport and allowing people to come out and not be all the way in like we all are and still get to see where they stack up.
And especially for me, it didn't work out. There was one up in Cameron I was going to do. I wasn't able to do that one, but I don't really need David there to help me set up anything with that necessarily because I can just take a can or our Lower Smoky Mountain. I can handle those cookers. I'm like physically moving them around and setting up a pop-up tent. So it could be something that I could do on my own if I wanted to.
Right. Some people would say you'd be better without David there anyway.
Poor David.
I know. What has been the most surprising thing to come out of competition barbecue for you?
So I think the most surprising thing, back when we first started, you're just thinking, oh, I'm going to go cook a barbecue competition or whatever. But you make so many friends, first of all, and you just end up having these opportunities that I would have never had the chance to do through doing these KCBS competitions. So, for example, the lady pitmaster thing that was in the World Foods a few years ago. So got to go compete in the Lady Pitmaster series down there, even doing that barbecue fight club, even just traveling, traveling out to California. We've been out there, I think like 4 times now and traveling all over the country. And those aren't things that we would have normally done. Right. So it's opened up a lot of just new adventures, I like to call them.
Yeah, it's my favorite part of barbecue too. We would have never met probably without that. And
Right.
it would, yeah.
That's
what makes barbecue great is, yeah. What makes barbecue great is the people.
Sure.
And I know that you cook on not only 913, but you also have can you talk about the other team?
Yeah, the Real Barbecue Wives of Kansas City. So Jackie Hathaway with Old Style Barbecue and Joyce Saney with Slaughterhouse 5. We get together and cook every once in a while. Unfortunately, we couldn't this year do as many as we wanted. I think we wanted to do a handful, but we were able to, before this all started, we cooked out at the Guinea Pig out in California together. So, and we beat Dan and David.
Yeah.
So we had a top 10 finish.
I don't think anyone was surprised at you guys beating Dan and David.
Oh.
I knew that this would turn into a David basking session, but David is truly one of the gentlemen of barbecue and will literally do anything for everybody to a fault. Is he there?
Yeah.
Oh, stick your face in there, David.
Yeah. He was all concerned that the dog was missing. She's in the living room taking a nap.
Oh. Well, thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And can you tell us where to find 913 online and if there's any sponsors or anything that you'd like to recognize?
Sure. So we'd like to recognize American Barbecue Systems. They're based right here in Olathe, Kansas. We cook off of one of their pits. And, of course, the Kansas City Barbecue Store and Dan Hathaway. So thank you to them. And then you can find 913 Barbecue on Facebook. And Instagram is 913_BBQ. And then, of course, my new YouTube channel.
Well, great, Bethany. It's been great talking with you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for listening to Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. For show notes about each episode, links to products and events discussed, please visit www.oldvirginiasmoke.com/podcast. Also, be sure to check out our new Old Virginia Smoke YouTube channel. Simply go to YouTube and search for Old Virginia Smoke. We will see you in 2 weeks with our next episode featuring Joe Raziano from Big Raz Barbecue. For companies interested in advertising, please contact Old Virginia Smoke directly via www.oldvirginiasmoke.com. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is edited by Chris Sedenka. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is a property of Old Virginia Smoke, LLC. All rights reserved. Copyright 2020.